Hello everybody, welcome to Chess 24 and welcome to Game of the Day. Another great round of chess from the first of three tournaments comprising the Grand Chess Tour, Norway Chess. Yesterday we saw a flawless display by Fabiano Caruana, who managed to take down the world champion Magnus Carlsen. Today there were equally as exciting matchups, including Nakamura versus Caruana, the soon-to-be at least US number 1 and 2, when Fabiano completes his move. And there was also the game Carlsen versus Giri. Now, this is a really interesting matchup because, if all of you don't know, Anish Giri, the Dutch number 1, the prodigy, he had previously not lost to Magnus Carlsen in a classical game, one of the very few elite grandmasters not to have lost to the world champion, of course. So often very wittily and very provocatively calls Magnus his customer or his passenger. Well, let's see if things were to change today. Magnus Carlsen had white. Started with e4, c5, knight f3, d6, and bishop b5 check. So Magnus doesn't enter the mainline Sicilians. That's not really his style. He's not a theoretician. Didn't want to test Giri in that. But plays an opening, the Moscow system as it's called, which he has employed with huge success versus the likes of Anand in the past and various other top GMs. It's a very safe way of getting your pieces out, not really aiming for a crushing blow in the opening, but I think it's a very underestimated opening as I play it myself, and it's probably the opening that has yielded me the best results. So against this, black can of course block the check in various ways. Giri plays the move knight d7, which was a favourite of Kasparov. This is the way to really keep a lot of tension in the position. And so knight d7, you block the check, but also you now plan to hit the bishop with a6, saying, hey, well, what are you doing with that bishop on b5? Here there are a number of moves. The move castles is a very decent move. d4 is also another main move. But Carlsen plays the move c3, which is a bit of a sideline, and a move that I actually experimented with, and we'll have a look at what happened in my game against Grandmaster Erik Hansen earlier this year, where I went down in flames, believe it or not. Losing that game hurt more than most, because had I won that game, I would have completed my Grandmaster norm, my third Grandmaster norm as well. So that's going to linger in the memory, unfortunately, for some time. The point of c3, though, is very simple. You want to erect a perfect pawn center with d4. So black comes out with knight f6, hitting this, and the only real decent move here is to play queen e2. Now if you let white just continue with d4 and castles, he's going to have more space and a better position. So black has to be proactive, hits the bishop goes to, and you hit it again, and the bishop comes back to c2. And it's here already where I think that maybe Anish made a small inaccuracy by playing the move e6. It looks very logical, but the move bishop b7, the move that Hansen played against me, I think may offer black some more chances, because if white erects the pawn center with d4 straight away, the question is whether black can take, and now play rook c8, and whether there is some mildly uncomfortable pressure down this c file, so you immediately use this file. Again, I think this requires further testing, but the move bishop b7 felt a bit more natural to me, because when you play e6, as Giri did, you do allow just d4. So white gets his center, bishop b7, castles, and bishop e7. So we get a position been seen various times before. There was the games Fiddler Grishchuk from Baku 2014. This exact position where white's got a number of ideas. He is always threatening to play e5, or at least it's always a move that he has to consider. But he can also play the move a4. And actually, were the pawn on e5, we would have a kind of Ruy Lopez Spanish structure where this move a4 is a very useful move just to compromise this queen side. But Carlsen played rook e1. It's been seen before, very standard move. I often felt, though, putting the rook on the queen, the rook on e1 and the queen on e2 felt a bit strange. I'd rather have the rook on e1 and the queen on the d file, or perhaps the queen on e2 and the rook on d1, but who am I to argue with Magnus Carlsen? Black castled, knight bd2. Now the very standard Spanish maneuver of putting the knight on g3 is going to happen. And the problem is, if black does nothing, if he just sits and waits, he's just going to be suffering from a lack of space and worse. So he takes on d4 and now plays rook c8, hitting this bishop. Previously, the move queen c7 had been seen in the game Rasik-Lajnica earlier this year. But actually, Rasik caused a bit of an upset there, rated 24-30, beating Victor Lajnica over 200 points higher rated. Very similar things actually happened in the game, because after rook c8, well, of course, knight f1 was to be played, and after rook e8, white continues with his plan of knight g3. Bishop f8 is now played, and white continues development. Bishop e3 connecting the rooks, and rook c7. The idea of rook c7 is to perhaps put the queen on a8 to exert pressure down this diagonal, and also play rook e c8. We see this move rook c7 more in English opening structures and English games, but it's a very useful move, and hedgehog systems, of course. So it's actually a common idea. But now after bishop d3, I think it's safe to say that white's got a pleasant little edge. He's got control of the center. He's completed his development, and he is ready to play moves like a4 and make inroads into the black position. So here Giri felt like he had to do something, and he played the move e5. It's an understandable reaction. You can't just let white have the lion's share of the center and do nothing. And of course, after e5, white responded d5. He doesn't want to open this file up because the rook and queen are situated there, so he closes the position with d5, but also secures a square for his knight and blunts out two bishops with the same move. This d5 move is actually a very common move in Spanish games. So as soon as black plays e5, playing d5 makes perfect sense because we've transposed to a Spanish structure. Knight c5 is natural, hitting this bishop, and the bishop dropped back to c2. And here it's already a pretty tricky position, because white's idea of perhaps going b4 and a4 are quite clear, getting a rook to the c file. So I understand black's idea with b4, but perhaps this was a bit hasty, because you give away a lot of control of the light squares, and also you give a square for this knight on c4, and that could prove to be very useful in the future. Instead, maybe queen d7, which is the machine's option, is interesting, because I think after b4, you can actually put your knight on a4. And an exchange like this, actually, I don't think would help white too much, because now you give away your light square bishop, and if this guy ever gets active, black's going to be in good shape. So queen d7 was interesting. And after b4, Magnus played accurately with a3, and Anish reacted here as well, very well, with the move b3. The problem with going a5 is you give away more control. Takes, and suddenly this pawn is actually a bit loose. And after a move like bishop a4, if you take, I think white just wins the pawn. And what's this guy on b7 doing? I think with that, white would get some serious advantage. So b3 was okay, giving up the pawn in this way. So black sacrificed a pawn, but it's different now, because after the move queen b6, black at least has managed to win the two bishops and coordinate his pieces. So I think this was a very good practical decision by Giri compared to the previous line. Well, here the bishop's on pre, so bishop c4 was played, rook e c8, and now bishop to d3. Okay, so white's danced around with his bishop, but he's managed to consolidate and has a pawn advantage. So white should be better, but it's not as easy as it looks. g6 was, of course, the move that would be played with the idea of bringing the bishop out to h6 and covering f5, knight f1, and bishop h6. This is a good move by Giri, activating the bishop, controlling the c1 square, and maintaining a bit of tension in the position. The knight came to e3, and now b4 is a serious idea, so black played a5. But here, this didn't stop Magnus. He played b4 anyway. This is a good move. Takes, and the problem is he'd love to take on b4, but rook e b1, probably the other rook a to b1, is a bit embarrassing because you lose the bishop. So here, this is actually one of the various critical moments in the game. The move rook c3 was very possible. That looked like a very logical move to me, where you just eye up this third rank. And after knight c4, well, actually, we'll see this in the game, but it's possible that black can just take this pawn now. And I know you're all saying, well, hold on, can white not just play the move rook eb1 like before and win this bishop? The difference is now that you might be able to play the move rook takes c4. And this is something that could actually happen in the main game as well. So it's important to just point this out here, because you'll understand how it works in the main game. But basically here, the problem is if white takes the queen and black takes back, if we just take stock here, black has got a rook and a bishop for a queen, which normally isn't enough material. But given the fixed nature of the pawns, given that black's only weakness is on d6, given the fact that he's got fantastically active pieces, I don't think black's worse here, actually. White's got all of the wrong pieces. He's got a light squared bishop, which is blocked in by its own pawns. He's got a knight that's got no decent route. I actually think black's got very good chances to hold the balance here. So that would have been an important resource for Anish. But actually, instead of taking the queen after rook 8 takes c4, bishop takes c4 would have been an excellent move. And this is a bit deep now, because after takes, and takes, on at first sight, it seems as though knight takes e4, black is an exchange down, but he's won a key central pawn, and he looks like he's holding things, but actually the pressure along the 7th could be very unpleasant. The only problem is white's got to safeguard the back rank. He doesn't want to move the rook up and get checkmated. So the move h4 would have been an excellent move and maintain some pressure, because now you're going check followed by rook here, and actually this is very, very unpleasant. And perhaps if we look at the game, after instead of rook c3, rook c7 was played, I think Magnus could have done the same thing with knight c4, and we would have transposed into similar lines rather than his move b5, which also maintains an advantage because you keep the pawn in its pure form, but suddenly it becomes a bit more difficult to make progress. Queen c5 was played, h3 is useful, giving some luft for the king, but now knight h5. This is a typical King's Indian idea, because we've got a King's Indian structure now, where you bring the knight to f4. Queen b2 was played by Carlsen. Now b6 is a threat, so black came back. And now queen b4, now with threatening knight c4, which meant that bishop takes e3 is the only move, and rook takes e3. The computers love f takes e3, but I think that's a very difficult move to make as a human, because you do fix your own pawns on slightly awkward squares. So rook takes e3 is understandable. And now rook c3 is perhaps a bit of a mistake by Giri. Knight f4, bishop f1, which would have, and now f5 may have just promised some counterplay, although that said, after knight to g5, takes, and now takes on d5, the important move queen b3, pinning the knight, would perhaps offer still white the better chances. But after rook c3 and now rook ae1, f5, Giri tried to drum up this counterplay, as you have to when you're a pawn down, but to be honest, I don't think it quite works out. Magnus played accurately here. E takes f5, knight f4, and now the very strong move bishop e4, solidifying a very important piece in the middle of the board. Giri played a very good move here as well, rook c5. He doesn't want to exchange pieces. He has to keep pieces on. This was his idea. He wanted to distract this e-pawn because now the d5 pawn is weak. But after takes, now white is 2 pawns up, and takes was an excellent move. So white is now, believe it or not, 3 pawns up in this position. The problem black has is that you can't take on g6 because a move like queen g4, and there's no way of holding the knight, the extra piece. These guys on the queen side are just passengers. Any king move will be hit by knight g5 check, or king g7 is just hit by knight h4, and the rook is swinging over as well. So after bishop takes g6, rook takes b5 is the move that most humans would play. But it's really here where we reach our second critical moment of the game. And white has got there is no other way to describe this move, but an out-of-this-world resource that the computers see instantly, but is a move to the human eye which simply does not occur. And that is the move bishop to f7 check. This is actually a you're sacrificing the piece in order to lure the king to a slightly awkward square without any clear way to finish him off, but the computers go mad for it. The point is that after king takes f7 and now the move queen e4, we can see here white is threatening queen f5 check, knight g5 and rook to g3, and there's actually just no defense here. For example, if bishop takes d5, just queen f5 check and you're picking up the rook, and with the open king it's all over, so you can't do that. If you try a move like, let's say, king to g7, which looks like a natural move, getting out of the check and covering h7, just the move knight g5. And after bishop takes d5, again, just an amazing move that you have to foresee. The move queen to f5, hitting the rook. The move queen to h7 check, which is the absolutely natural move that every human would play, is only sufficient for a draw after king f6, believe it or not. And after check king e7, black is getting away. And, for example, a move like rook g8, well, this actually is met by queen f5 check. This is refuted quite easily, because if the king comes to the e file, let's say king e8, queen takes f4, wins the piece back with too much material, and king g7, knight g5 would have ended the game. So, I mean, to have seen this move is just, well, even the world champion, I wouldn't expect the world champion to see this move. It's just not on your radar as a human. Instead, the move queen e4, which is what Magnus plays, is very much on your radar. But now after rook f8, this is an excellent defensive move. Knight takes e5, d takes e5, rook g3. So white is now, you know, he's a full piece down, but he's got all kinds of threats. In fact, after the brilliant move rook takes d5, the only move black seems to be holding. And Magnus in this position, it's move 40, they reach the time control. Magnus had a think here for about half an hour, and amazingly he couldn't come up with anything. And the point is, there is just nothing here for white. Despite having a free discovered check and such an open king, black has got enough resources. For example, the move bishop h5 check, king h8, and maybe now bishop f3, just, oh, I'll redraw that arrow, eyeing up this bishop. Actually here, after a move like bishop a8, a brilliant move, just holding this bishop, protecting it, and again, there's no clear breakthrough for white. So you can analyze this position in your own time, because there's just so much to analyze in this game. Eventually, Magnus went for the move queen b1, but after takes, the move, of course, bishop takes b1 is discovered check, king h8, bishop e4, and this is all a forcing variation, rook takes e5. The dust really has settled. But we reach a curious position when you have two rooks and three pawns versus two rooks and a knight. This should be a draw. And in fact, what happened is, whizzing through the next few moves, Giri managed to exchange a pair of rooks, and he managed to also exchange a second pair of rooks, where we reach a well-known theoretical ending, which is a draw. It's 3 pawns versus a knight. Of course, white can never lose, but actually you can never win this, especially given this setup. And after king f3, knight d6, Magnus slowly advanced his pawns, but it doesn't matter, because after knight to b5, and this is move 63, yes, knight to b5, Magnus played h5. In fact, the game is still ongoing as I do this. Knight c3 check, king d4, knight b5 check, king c4, knight d6 check, king c5, and now king e6. This is an excellent move. The point is, you would love to go f5 check here with black, but you can just snap this off. And of course, you're way too close to the h-pawn for an easy draw. And if you can't do that, of course, there's nothing here for white at all. You have to move the king, and it's an easy draw. There's not even much point me going on here. Even though the game is in progress, I'm absolutely certain Giri's going to be drawing this. In fact, Magnus just played the move king c6, but here I think actually any knight move is just a draw. The move knight e4 draws. Just everything is a dead draw. Quite an amazing game, but what a chance missed for a struggling Magnus Carlsen. And when this ends in a draw, he will only have half out of 3, which will be the worst start to a super tournament for him in a long time. In other news, poor old Fabiano Caruana, he played a perfectly fine game until moves 39 and 40, where he blew a very holdable drawn rook ending and went on to lose against Hikaru Nakamura, meaning that he springboards to the top. Veselin Topalov made short work of Vashir Lagrave, who played a very bad game by his standards. And the other 2 games, well done to Jon Ludwig Hammer for holding with black against Levon Aronian. And the other game between Anand and Grishchuk was also a very interesting game, but Grishchuk did well to hold that as well. So that's all from me for today. Remember, of course, we've got more games of the day coming up, and check out the news article for more information about all the excitement and drama from today's round. It's all. Take care. Have a great night.